welcome, one and all. We're back. Yeah, baby. Now, this is technically a part 2, obviously, as you can see by the giant 2 on the thumbnail, but you do not have to watch part 1 to understand what's going on in here. If you want to, though, if you're interested, I will be linking part 1 down below in the description, but if you don't want to watch it and you're curious about what killers were in part 1, here they are, right here. Part 1 killers, all 12 of them. Now, before we get into part 2, I'm going to go ahead and outline the rules of this video, because I did not do that with part 1. The first rule, this will be primarily buffs. No nerfs. Or, I mean, there will be nerfs, but there won't be nerfs to big killers. So you won't be seeing Kaneki being gutted, like Skull Merchant. Same thing with nerfs or Blight. You won't be seeing them on this list. You'll be seeing mostly weaker killers buffed. Second, these are stat changes or power additions. I'm not doing whole reworks. I'm not trying to rework a killer at the moment. I'm also not doing add-on passes, just to keep it simple. Number 3, I am not, by any means, touching Twins, Trickster, or Skull Merchant. Because Trickster and Skull Merchant are already due for a rework sometime in 2020 never, and I fear the wrath of Pixel Bush. So, don't expect them in this video. With that all being said, same as the previous video, feel free to leave your thoughts about my changes down below. I will try my best to respond to every comment. If it pops off as much as the last video, I probably won't be able to get to everyone, and I apologize for that, but I will try my best. And finally, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps out a lot, and it means a lot to me. Thank you. But now, let's get right into it. Starting off with...
Surprise! You just activated my trap card.
Starting off with the Trapper. Dead by Daylight's poster boy, and #1 worst killer at almost all times. I have a lot to go through here, so try to keep up. First and foremost, all bear traps now start the trial armed. This is something that constantly bothers me, and it's interesting that this isn't already a thing. I think it kind of just makes sense for all traps to start armed. You start off with pressure. You start off with the idea that you can maybe track survivors depending on if they step on a trap or not, or if they disarm a trap. It just kind of makes sense, to me at least, to start off the trial with traps armed. Second, the Trapper can no longer be caught in his bear traps. The #1 change the whole community has been asking for forever. I don't know how it's not here already, but there you go. Change number 3, increased the amount of bear traps the Trapper carries by default to 3, was 2. Another thing the community's asked for a long time. Very, very simple change, something that I think should have been implemented a long time ago. That's going to be something I say a lot with these Trapper changes. Number 4, increased bear trap hitbox by, I put 15% here, but I have no idea how strong 15% would be. Maybe it's not strong at all. Nonetheless, I think the bear trap needs a small increase in hitbox size, because there are just so many scenarios. I don't know if I'm the only one, but there are so many scenarios where you place a trap, and then it feels like survivors would be cut off entirely from that area, but they manage to slip on by just because the trap hitbox is so small. So I think increasing it a little bit would be nice. Maybe increase the model too. Big bear traps would be really funny to me, so anything works. Change number 5. Reduced bear trap setting time to 2 seconds, was 2.5. And change number 6, increased bear trap disarm time to 4 seconds, was 3.5. Basically, just trying to make it so Trapper's gameplay flow is a bit quicker and Survivor's is a bit slower. I think making it so Survivors take a bit more time to deal with his web will give it a little bit more back row pressure. Not by a whole lot, but just by a little bit. Speaking of Trapper's gameplay flow, reduced bear trap pickup time to 0.5 seconds, was 1 second. Gameplay flow, not a whole lot to say there. But that's the end of stat changes for the Trapper. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to all the things that I added to the Trapper. First, added. Whenever a survivor is caught by a bear trap, the Trapper gains a 7.5% haste status effect until that survivor escapes a bear trap or is put into the down state. You know, if a survivor gets trapped on the other side of the map, odds are you're not going to catch up to it. But in the rare case where they get unlucky, or in the rare case of which I will be mentioned in a second, you can run over to the other side of the map a bit easier, or you can use that 7.5% haste to chase another survivor quickly. Now on to the next change. I'm not sure how people are going to take this one, but I thought it'd be interesting to throw it in and see what your guys' thoughts are. Reworked escape functionality. When a survivor is caught in a bear trap, they are faced with a stream of skill checks over the course of 3 seconds. The skill checks become progressively more difficult. So think Merciless Storm, but it gets a little harder as it goes on, or over the course of 3 seconds. But if a survivor fails a skill check, the skill check's reset. After 4 failed attempts to escape, the survivor is released and put into the injured state and inflicted with the broken status effect for 30 seconds. Basically trying to punish survivors more for getting caught. So no matter what, you get caught, you're going to get injured, you're going to get broken, or you're going to be something else in a second. Let's get to that one. Finally, if a survivor escapes a bear trap, they are inflicted with a 20% hindered status effect for 3 seconds. Their bleeding is increased by 100% for 30 seconds. So basically, with those 2 changes, just trying to make it so survivors are punished more for being trapped. No matter what they do, no matter how they escape, they're either going to be hindered or they're going to be broken. Just kind of making it so Trapper's whole macro gameplay is much easier across the board. And speaking of Trapper's macro gameplay, the final change on this list, added ability, Hunter's Recall, activates 15 seconds after the start of the trial. Using the secondary ability button, the Trapper can recall any placed bear trap into his hand. Obviously, this is another idea that the community's had for a long time, and I think this is one that should have been in the game as well. It adds a little bit more depth to Trapper's kit because he has, 2 sentences. I think this would be nice. I think it would help Trapper's macro once again. I also think it would indirectly help his micro gameplay. Being able to recall a trap at any distance would be far nicer for him. He has no traps. There's one that's in the corner of the map that he wouldn't normally be able to grab, so he Hunter recalls it and then is able to place it. That's all for the Trapper changes. Just kind of basically making Trapper somewhat viable. I hope you guys like these changes. I don't play Trapper that much, and I definitely don't play the next character coming up. So I especially want your thoughts on these. The second killer in the trap category, the Hag.
It's true at the post-production. I'm back. I just wanted to apologize for the upcoming gameplay. I decided to do a waterlogged shoe build, and I actually didn't know how waterlogged shoe worked, so that's on me. I apologize for that. Just wanted to let you know. I did not know how the add-on worked.
Now, I don't play Hag at all. I actually think Hag is, in my opinion, one of the most unfun killers in the game to play. But nonetheless, I try to throw my hat in the ring with some Hag changes. Not a lot here, a very significant decrease in amount of changes. Starting off, increased base movement speed to 4.6 was 4.4. I don't think Hag should be 4.4. We're in an age of Dead by Daylight where there are so many teleport killers and none of them are as weak as Hag. I think Hag is the weakest teleport killer by a large margin. I'm sure that's going to be an unpopular opinion because Hag was considered one of the best killers in the game for a while. But I think she's really bad, really slow, and really sluggish to play. Speaking of bad, slow, and sluggish, change number 2. Increased teleport range to 60 meters was 48. Maybe this is just a me thing, as someone who doesn't enjoy playing Hag, but not being able to teleport to your trap at all times if it triggers is kind of ridiculous. It gives survivors the ability to just trigger all your traps and you can't do anything about it. With this, I think you'd make it a bit nicer for the Hag. I think it increases her overall macro pressure. Change number 3. Reduced time to set Phantasm Trap to 1.7 seconds was 1.9. Making it a bit faster, making it a bit less sluggish, so it's a bit more viable to place a trap and chase. And finally, increased Phantasm Trap tear radius to 16 meters was 8. So for those of you who don't know, whenever a trap is triggered by a survivor, it drops a little tear radius. I think increasing the tear radius just by a little bit can add a bit more pressure to the survivor, maybe trick them into thinking the Hag actually did teleport when she didn't. Maybe that's a redundant change though, who knows. Like I said, I don't play the Hag, and in my previous video, I said I hated the Hag, and I stand by that. But you guys like the Hag, so tell me Hag mains down in the comments below. What do you think of these changes? And are there any changes you think should be added as well? Because I quite frankly don't know. But yeah, that's all for the Hag, and that's all for the trap killers. 2 killers per category instead of 3. I tried to make up for it with a lot more changes. Not as much for this next category. This next category is going to be a very brisk one, so try to keep up. Or the first killer in the chase category, the Wraith. For change number 1, increased uncloak movement speed boost to 1.2 seconds was 1 second. When I play Wraith, I feel like I'm just barely short of hitting that uncloak lunge. Similar to Pig's Dash, I feel like it's just a smidgen too short. I think this might help a lot. Change number 2. Reduced cloaked power stun duration to 3 seconds was 4. As a non-Wraith main, it feels really sluggish being stunned in cloak state. The fact that you get stunned for a long time on top of being taken out of cloak really sucks. Especially the Deathslinger main, I know the pain of ridiculously long power stuns, so I think decreasing it would help a lot. Change 3, increased uncloaking movement speed to 1.8 meters, was 1.6, making it a bit easier for the Wraith to kind of just uncloak around the loops. And finally, the Wraith takes priority when breaking a pallet or vaulting a window while cloaked. I really dislike when I'm trying to break a god pallet and the survivor just spam vaults over and over and over and over again. It's not even counterplay, if you ask me. It's just plain dumb. Like, it's a ridiculous thing that I think should be gone, and I don't like it, and it makes playing the Wraith feel really bad sometimes. And then the same thing with vaulting windows. You can't vault a window to chase the survivor if they spam vault it. Those are my changes for the Wraith. I don't play a whole lot of Wraith. I don't know if these changes are good or not. If they are, let me know. If they aren't, let me know. And of course, if you did not like them, or if you did like them, like and subscribe anyway. Thank you. Now on to the Legion. The Legion is a character that I actually do play a little bit. I've gotten more into them recently, so I hope that the people who've played Legion longer than me agree with these changes. The first change, increased movement speed in post-frenzy fatigue to 2.5 meters a second, was 2.3. Making it so their post-fatigue is a bit faster, so you can actually use it in loops a bit easier. My favorite playstyle with Legion personally is the Chase Legion or the Loop Legion. You go into Frenzy, you hit them, you break a pallet, you vault a window or something, and then you unfrenzy, you get in fatigue, and you down them. That's how I like to play Legion personally. But moving on, before I get into a rant. Number 2, reduced post-frenzy fatigue duration to 2.2 seconds, was 2.5. Once again, making that post-frenzy state a bit nicer to play with, making it a bit easier on loops. Number 3, increased feral frenzy initial movement speed to 5.4 meters a second, was 5.2. This, on top of another change, is to address a problem I have with the Legion, which is not even a Legion problem, it's a map design problem. Maps in Dead by Daylight are huge. Even the small ones are pretty damn big, and it can be really difficult as the Legion to get that 5 hit down, ever, at any point. So, that, on top of change number 4, reduced the number of slashes required to trigger feral frenzy down. Reduced the number of slashes required to trigger a frenzy down to 4, was 5. Now that, on top of the previous change, I want to try to fix that map size issue, making it a bit easier. I don't know how strong it could be. It might be a tad bit strong, giving them the ability to down after 4 slashes. But at the same time, considering Legion's a very low tier killer, considering maps are very big nowadays, I think it's a fair change, including the changes I made to his post-frenzy state. I think it could help Legion a lot with Chase and dealing with the whole ever-expanding map size problem. But yeah, those are the killers for the Chase category. Once again, as always, please tell me what you think of these changes down below. A lot of these killers I don't play enough to truly understand the deeper-seated issues, and even killers I do play a lot, I don't understand the deeper-seated issues, like Demogorgon with the whole shred, like turning camera after using shred. Such an obvious change that I totally would have added if I thought about it, but I didn't think about it. Nonetheless, though, rant for another video. We're going to move on to the third category of which. Now, I used the term ranged killer kind of loosely here. Neither of these killers are really ranged killers by definition, but they kind of are. So try to stick with me here. Starting off with the first character, the one with the least amount of changes I think I've done for any killer in either video, the Clown. Now, obviously, the Clown just got done being passed around by the devs in the Walking Dead PTB and the other PTBs and all the stuff around it. And I do not think he's in a great state. I'm sure most people can agree with that. So I tried my hand at making him a bit nicer to play, maybe a bit more functional. Starting off, increased the hindered status effect duration to 1.2 seconds, was 1. This was how it was before the Walking Dead PTB. I think it's something that should be reverted, especially since they lowered the amount of hindered you get as is. So I think this would help a little bit. On top of that, Added effect to Afterpiece Anecdote. Invigoration now increases the clown's action break speeds by 15%. Now, I couldn't decide whether it should be 15% or 10%. 15% is exactly the same vault speed as Bamboozle, and a bit slower than Brutal Strength. It felt like a nice middle ground. I'm not sure. If it is too strong, I think 10% would work fine. Nonetheless, though, I think this would be a nice change to add to the Afterpiece Antidote. Clown is in a weird space at the moment, has always been in a weird space, where you throw a bottle, you throw another bottle, and that's the entirety of his playstyle. I think it'd be a lot more interesting if it was like you throw a bottle, and then you use the bottle to vault over a window faster, bamboozle, then you throw that other bottle, and then you get the hit, or they pallet drop you, you throw a bottle, you break it faster, and then you get that movement speed to catch up quicker. I think it just had a bit more gameplay variety to Clown's kit, a little bit more skill expression on it. For the final change, survivors now directly hit by Clown's bottles are incapacitated for 2 seconds. This might honestly not do a whole lot. It might do a little bit, who knows. It was just kind of something I added, because it felt weird having a killer with just 2 changes over 3. There might be some cases where this would play well. It felt kind of weird being able to hit somebody directly with a bottle and it would do nothing, similar to the Unknown. So I thought adding something on to being able to hit survivors with the bottle would be a little nice. But yeah, like I said, very little changes here, very quick, very brisk. We're gonna go ahead and move on to a character with a lot of changes. The animatronic, or the Springtrap, which I will probably call it a lot of times incidentally. The first change I would make to Mr. Springtrap reduced the animatronic's sound effects. Similar change to the Dredge, he makes so much noise. No matter what you're doing, it's ridiculous. He could like point at someone and it would shatter the sound barrier. It is just ridiculous how much noise he makes. His footsteps being loud, it makes sense. He's a giant walking robot, and also he's undetectable a lot, so you want some sort of noise sound effect letting you know that he's nearby. But maybe that's just me. We're gonna go ahead and move on. Second change, reduced post-throw cooldown of the fire axe to 1.6 seconds, was 2 seconds. I don't know if it's just me, but it can feel really bad. When you throw the axe to Springtrap, whether you miss it or you hit it, you have 2 seconds where you cannot do anything. It feels really bad in some cases, and it kind of messes with the gameplay flow of Springtrap. On top of that, reduced missed fire axe recharge to 6 seconds was 7. Both these changes just wanted to make the gameplay flow of Springtrap a little bit faster, similar to the Trapper, similar to a lot of the killers here. A lot of these killers just have a kind of a sluggish gameplay flow at times. I want to make it a bit faster, a bit nicer to play them. As for these next changes though, you increase the time to reveal the animatronic using a security camera through the environment by 50%. The aura of the security camera currently revealing the animatronic is revealed to the animatronic in yellow, and disabling a security door using the fire axe immediately recalls the fire axe. Now these 3 changes are just to add a bit more clarity and once again gameplay flow to Springtrap. There are so many instances, I don't know if it's just me, but when I'm being revealed by a security door and I could not figure out for the life of me where it was coming from, whether because there were 3 security doors within a 10-foot radius of me, or because the security door was just barely behind a small rock and just the camera was poking out. Once again, could just be me, maybe. And then the reveal time through the environment and the security door fire axe thing, both suggestions I saw in the previous video's comments. I thought they were great suggestions, but both great changes. I think the environment one's nice because I think it's stupid that you can get revealed through the environment at all, but it's whatever. It helps survivor quality of life with the doors. And then the fire axe thing, I think it's nice. It's a bit of a trade-off. You go to disable the door, you don't have to leave the fire axe behind. You get it back immediately, but you still have that 4.4 movement speed. I think it's a very nice change. I think both those changes are great ideas. Moving on, 2 changes that coincide with each other. The animatronic is kicked out of the security door after 3 seconds of idling. The animatronic is no longer granted the undetectable status effect after emerging from the security door they previously entered. Now, a big problem with the Springtrap, I think for the killer side, is a lot of Springtraps will go up to a door after hooking a survivor and just sit in the door and wait for the unhook. Or to kick a gen, sit in the door, wait for them to come back. I think it's an unfun playstyle. I'm sure it is unfun to play against. I want to dissuade other players for doing that. On top of the change to the undetectable, making it so it's even less viable to pop your head out immediately. A couple of nerfs to an unfun playstyle. I don't think this should affect the animatronics gameplay as a whole. It will certainly affect your ability to get that dumbass achievement done. But you know, Evil Incarnate existed for 9 years. So, there's been worse. Moving on. Reduce the battery consumption upon traversing through a security door as Survivor to 10 charges was 15, making it a bit more worth it to use the security doors for travel. As of right now, they are not worth it, and I think we can all agree. To further incentivize survivors using the security doors, revealing the animatronic recharges security doors by 10 seconds. To make sure survivors don't overuse that to shit, reduce the duration the animatronic is revealed to 8 seconds was 10, and then, upon revealing the animatronic, security cameras go on cooldown for 12 seconds. So you'll still be able to use the security cameras, you'll still be able to see what's happening, you'll still be able to use the doors, you just won't be able to reveal the spring trap. And like I said, I just wanted to make it so survivors have more of an incentive to be using security doors, rather than, you know, not using them ever, which is the case for most survivors. And with spring trap, that brings us to the end of the ranged killers category. Ranged in quotation marks, of course. Now we're going to move on to the next category. A very interesting category I think you guys might find. Yeah, so I ran out of ideas for names here. You thought a little bit of everything was bad. Now we have the weird ranged killers. You're going to see what I mean by weird ranged killers, though. With the first killer of this tier, my boy, your boy, we all love him, Big Sus, the Nemesis. Now, after his buffs, the Nemesis feels really nice to play. And because of the fact that he feels really nice to play and is really good in chase, I didn't really want to mess with his tentacle a whole lot. This is going to be mostly zombie changes with 1 or 2 tentacle changes in between. Starting off with that first tentacle change, increased base tentacle attack range to 5.5 meters, was 5 meters. I definitely don't think this is a necessary change that needs to happen, but just something to increase his quality of life a little bit. A phrase that I always say when playing the Nemesis is that would have hit in tier 3, and 100% of the time it rings true. I think this would make him a bit nicer to play in tier 1 and tier 2, make it a bit easier to hit those longer shots. Moving on to the second change, we're now out of the tentacle change category. Increase the time for a survivor to open a supply crate to 5 seconds was 4. A little bit more macro, a little bit more Monica, and a little bit of change 3. Removed the ability to stun zombies using a flashlight. Flashbangs and firecrackers still stun zombies because, you know, more accuracy. And then zombies immediately stop chase upon using fog vials, so making fog vials a bit more viable against the Nemesis. You drop a fog vial, and then the zombie loses you. It's very simple. And on top of all that, pellets used to stun zombies reset after 3 seconds. Since I'm taking away the ability to stun zombies with flashlights, I think it's only fair that pellets used to kill zombies are reset. I don't know how this would work or if they'd be able to code it, but I think this would be a nice change on top of everything else. Continuing with buffs to their dipshit-ass zombies, increased zombie movement speed to 1.8 meters a second was 1. It's going to be a lot faster, maybe a little bit more difficult to deal with, but at the same time, I think it's necessary because zombies suck. They're awful. And speaking of suck and awful, increased base zombie detection range to 245 degrees was 190 degrees. This is the zombie detection range. Both of their add-ons applied. I think this should just be base kit. I think those add-ons should be reworked because those add-ons aren't great, but I think they would be good base kit. But that's all for stat changes. Like I said, mostly zombie based because they suck. But we're not done with the Nemesis just quite yet. We have one more thing. Added ability, Parasitic Command. Upon reaching mutation rate 2, gain the ability Parasitic Command. Using the secondary ability button, the Nemesis can select a generator. Selecting a generator will attract the nearest zombie within 32 meters, forcing them to patrol a 20-meter radius of a generator for 60 seconds. And if there is no zombie within 32 meters of the selected generator, the furthest zombie will die and respawn within 12 meters of the selected generator for 45 seconds. Kind of making zombies more guard-like, like night guard-like, gives you a bit more control over what they do. It gives you a bit more macro pressure, makes you a bit more oppressive across the map. And for the final change on the Nemesis voice line now triggers upon initiating chase with any of the Resident Evil Stars members. So the Stars sound effect he makes whenever he grabs a survivor out of a locker or performs a Mori on them happens whenever he starts chase. I think it's just a fun little thing. I think it'd be funny. I don't know. That's all for the Nemesis. On to the final character for the weird ranged killers category, the Artist. Now, I made a little bit of a reference in the first video to this, but did you know that the Artist is the only killer in Dead by Daylight history to not have one singular direct buff or nerf? This bitch has gone unchanged, except for one instance that wasn't even a buff to her over the course of her lifespan. The only changes she has gotten in her lifespan have been from PTB to Live, which don't count, and then a PTB add-on pass that did not go through because it was so bad. The only change, the one change she got, which was entirely indirect, was removing the light burn mechanic, which was a thing changed for several killers other than her, so that doesn't even really count either. She's managed to go unchanged all this time, and yet she has barely fluctuated in position on tier lists. I think it's really incredible. Nonetheless, though, she's not a bad killer by any means. She's a good killer. I do think, however, she has a bit of an unfun playstyle, and I think that her kit kind of dissuades a more fun playstyle. So that's the idea here. Firstly, survivors can no longer dispel crows by entering a locker. That is the #1 pet peeve I have with this killer. It feels like they don't want you to play long-range artists because you can shoot a crow at a survivor on the gen, they'll just hop in a locker, and it literally meant nothing to them. So instead, they have to actually dispel the crows, which incentivizes a more long-range playstyle. To further incentivize a long-range playstyle, reduce the time dire crows stay idling for 7 seconds was 10, so you can't be stalling loops with crows as long. I don't know, that might play out as a buff though. I'm not entirely sure, I won't lie. But moving on to the third change, increase the cooldown of dire crows after disintegrating from idling to 3 seconds was 2 seconds. Once again, another nerf, meant to dissuade the whole drop crow at loop playstyle that she's so well known for. Reduce dire crow invincibility buffer to 0.6 seconds was 0.75, making it a bit easier to get the long range snipe injures on people. And then reduce recharge time after firing a dire crow. This is going to be a few changes back to back, similar to the Demogorgon one. 1 crow, unchanged. 2 crows, 7 seconds was 9. 3 crows, 9 seconds was 12. And 4 crows, 11 seconds was 14. Like I've said like 4 times now, these changes are to incentivize a more map pressure, a more macro-oriented artist. Now, survivors, we all know, don't like playing against anti-loop artists. I don't like playing anti-loop artists. I prefer the long-range playstyle. But because of the way her kit is formatted at the moment, it kind of de-incentivizes you to play long-range artists, unless the survivors you're playing against are kind of dumb. Which, no offense to y'all who get wrecked by long-range artists.
Return of the King! That's right. It's me, Truly the Post-Production, here to retroactively add a change to the artist changes. Now, this is a change that I forgot while I was writing them down, but then I remembered it as I was recording this video, and that is a change to the dire crow spawn restriction. There is a 10-meter restriction to placing dire crows within Hook Survivor radius. First of all, lower this down to 8 meters. The range of dire crows is only 7.5, so that'd still be a half a meter radius between the dire crow damage range and the Hook Survivor. And then on top of that, I would like it to be only when looking at a Hook Survivor, because I quite frankly think it's ridiculous that this is a thing at all. It has never once played the way that they intended. It has only ever been used to be obnoxious and make it so I don't want to play this character. But yeah, that's all for Truly Post Production of this video. I'm going to move swiftly on to the end bit now. Adios.
These changes ideally would incentivize a more long-range playstyle. It would make it a lot easier to play and disincentivize a more anti-loop style artist gameplay. And that brings us to the end of our killer changes. Now, I don't know how long this video is going to be. I have a lot of shit to cut out. And I promise this time, I'll cut out every failed line. I saw you guys in the comments. I understand. like I've said so many times in this video, I want your thoughts on these changes. A lot of these killers, I don't play as much as I did in the previous video. A lot of these killers, similar to the previous video as well, I kind of threw ideas out there. Some things that I think might help, some things might not help, as you guys very vehemently pointed out to me with the ghost face translucent changes. But I'll get into that at a later video. I want all of your ideas. I want to hear them all. I love discussing this stuff. I want to talk about it further in a later video down the line. So feel free to throw whatever you want out there. If there are killers that you think should get changes that I didn't include in either of these videos, feel free to leave them down below. I'll look through them and I'll see if I might get to them later on. Nonetheless, though, I have nothing left to add and nothing else to say, so I'm gonna go ahead and skedaddle. Adios.